I never thought I'd find myself bargaining with a demon. But desperation does things to people, especially YouTubers. My name is Alex Shaw. For 3 years, I've poured my soul into Nightmare Forge, my horror content channel. I've studied film, theory, psychology, editing techniques, everything that should make me successful. But the algorithm had other plans. While teenagers doing lazy reaction videos racked up millions of views, my meticulously crafted horror content languished in obscurity. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my latest failure. The corridor that never ends had taken me 2 weeks to script, film, and edit. The result? 342 views after 48 hours. My bank account was running on fumes, and my landlord's patience was wearing thinner than the walls of this shoebox apartment. Leaned back in my chair, the blue light from my monitors casting shadows across my face, and stared at the ceiling. I'd sell my soul for success at this point, I muttered, downing the last lukewarm sip of energy drink. I didn't mean it literally. The room seemed to grow colder. My breath fogged in front of me, impossible for late September in my overheated apartment. The 3 monitors on my desk flickered simultaneously, then went black. Not off, just displaying perfect darkness. Great. Power surge, I sighed, reaching for the backup drive to make sure I hadn't lost my latest project. That's when words began typing themselves across the center screen. I've been watching your channel, Alex. I froze. My first thought was a hacker, some troll who'd broken into my system. I reached for the power button when the words continued. Your work has potential, but you're playing with fears you don't understand. What is this? I said aloud, feeling ridiculous immediately. Who was I talking to? The temperature dropped further. Ice crystals formed along the edges of my monitors. My teeth began to chatter. I can give you what you want. The success, the recognition, the ability to instill true fear. The darkness from my monitors seemed to leak out into the room, pooling on the floor like spilled oil. It rose, coalescing into a vaguely human shape. If humans were 7 feet tall with limbs too long and joints in all the wrong places. What the hell? I whispered, backing away until I hit the wall. The figure stepped forward into the dim light cast by my desk lamp. It wore what looked like an expensive black suit, but the fabric seemed to absorb all surrounding light. Its face was handsome in a classical way, high cheekbones, strong jaw, perfect symmetry, but there was something profoundly wrong about it, like someone had studied human faces in a book but never actually seen one. Hello, Alex. Its voice was pleasant, almost musical. You can call me Phobos. I should have been terrified, and I was, but curiosity has always been my downfall. What are you? Phobos smiled, revealing teeth too white, too straight, too numerous. I'm an appreciator of fine art, horror specifically. I've been following your work. My videos? I asked stupidly. Yes, they show promise, technical skill, good instincts. He walked to my desk, examining the scattered storyboards for my next project. But you're missing something essential. And what's that? He turned to look at me, and his eyes shifted from human to something else. Black voids with pinpricks, of light like distant stars. True understanding of fear. I should have run, should have screamed. Instead, I asked, what do you want? To propose a challenge. Phobos sat in my chair, which creaked under his weight. A duel, if you will. A duel? I've been making bargains with artists for millennia. Musicians, painters, writers, those who traffic in human emotion. You modern content creators are just the latest iteration. My mind flashed to The Devil Went Down to Georgia, a song my father used to play. A fiddle contest with the devil. What kind of duel? I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. A contest of fear. You will create one final video. Your masterpiece. If it frightens me more than I can frighten you, I will grant you the success you crave. Your channel will reach heights you've only dreamed of. And if I lose, that too wide smile again, then I take what was offered. My soul, I whispered. Such an outdated term. Let's call it your creative essence. your ability to feel and inspire fear. He leaned forward. Do we have a deal? Every rational part of me screamed to decline. But I looked at my failed channel, at the years of work leading nowhere, at the eviction notice taped to my refrigerator. How long do I have? 7 days. More than generous. And how does the frightening part work? You'll watch my video, and before that I will have my turn. 3 nights of, experiences designed by me. If you can endure them and still create something that disturbs me more deeply, you win. I thought about every horror movie I'd ever seen warning against deals with demons. I thought about my dwindling bank account and fading dreams. Deal, I said. Phobos extended his hand. When I shook it, his skin felt like leather left in a freezer. 7 days, Alex Shaw. I look forward to seeing what you create. And then he was gone. No dramatic exit, no smoke or flames. One moment he was sitting in my chair, and the next I was alone again, my monitors humming back to life as if nothing had happened. Only the lingering chill in the room and a business card on my desk with a single word, Phobos, told me it hadn't been a hallucination. I had 7 days to create the most terrifying video ever made. 7 days to scare a demon who had probably invented fear itself. What had I done? Morning came, and with it doubt. Had I dreamed the whole encounter? The business card was still there, but it could have been a prop from one of my videos that my sleep-deprived brain had incorporated into an elaborate nightmare. Except the room still felt wrong, like the dimensions were slightly off, as if someone had moved all the furniture an inch to the left. I made coffee and tried to think rationally. If it was real, if I had actually made a deal with some kind of fear demon, I needed a plan. Conventional horror wouldn't work on whatever Phobos was. Jump scares, gore, psychological thriller elements. Those were human fears. What scares a creature that embodies fear itself? I pulled up vidIQ on my browser, a creator tool I'd been using to research keywords and analyze competitors. I'd become an affiliate recently, not that it mattered much with my paltry viewership, but if there was ever a time I needed data-driven insights, it was now. First, I needed to understand fear. At its most fundamental level, I used vidIQ's Keyword Explorer to search for the most visceral horror concepts across cultures. What universal fears transcended human experience? What might affect something inhuman? The analytics showed interesting patterns. Content about cosmic horror, the fear of our insignificance in an uncaring universe, consistently engaged viewers longer than traditional monster stories. Videos exploring existential dread outperformed jump scares by nearly 40% in retention metrics. Using vidIQ's competitor research tools, I analyzed the most successful horror creators, not just for their subscriber counts, but for the emotional reactions in their comments. I was looking for videos where people reported genuine disturbance, not just entertainment. One pattern emerged. The most effective horror touched on the dissolution of self, the loss of identity, reality, or control. That gave me something to work with. By afternoon, I'd fallen down a research rabbit hole: ancient fear rituals, psychological studies on phobias, experimental horror films banned in multiple countries. I used vidIQ to track emerging horror trends, looking for anything that broke traditional patterns. A notification popped up on my phone, a calendar reminder for a meeting with a potential sponsor I'd forgotten completely. I almost ignored it, but then realized I needed money to create this video, and my current equipment wouldn't cut it. The meeting was with a small indie horror game company looking for YouTubers to promote their new release. Usually I'd be desperate for any sponsorship, but today I had leverage they couldn't possibly understand. I'm planning something special, I told them over the video call. A horror concept that breaks new ground. Your game would be perfectly positioned as the sponsor. They seemed skeptical until I outlined my concept, carefully omitting the supernatural elements and my demonic deadline. vidIQ's keyword research had shown me exactly what to emphasize: innovative psychological horror, reality-bending narrative, and a viewing experience that would be unforgettable. To my shock, they agreed, offering an advance that would cover the equipment upgrades I needed. As night fell, I continued my research with renewed purpose. vidIQ's analysis tools helped me identify a crucial pattern, content that broke the fourth wall, that made viewers feel personally targeted, created the strongest emotional responses. That gave me my angle. Traditional horror creates a safe distance. The monster is in the movie, not in your living room. But what if I could collapse that distance? Create something that felt like it was happening to the viewer, not to a character. I was making notes when my apartment grew cold again. Interesting approach. I spun around. Phobos stood by my bookshelf, examining my collection of horror films. Researching fear itself, he continued, pulling out a copy of The Ring. Very meta. You're not supposed to be here, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. You said I had 7 days. For creation, yes. He put the DVD back, perfectly aligned with the others. But I never said I wouldn't be watching the process. I find the creative journey enough fascinating. He moved to stand behind me, looking at my notes. His presence made the air feel thick, difficult to breathe. vidIQ, he read from my screen. Analyzing fear like it's a commodity, so very modern. Technology is just a tool, I replied. The fear itself is timeless. Is it? He asked, his voice near my ear. Or does each era have its own unique terrors? I turned to face him. What scares you, Phobos? That inhuman smile again. 7 days? Alex used them wisely, and he was gone. I sat in the silence of my apartment thinking about his question. Does each era have its own unique terrors? That's when it hit me. Phobos was ancient. He'd said he'd been making bargains for millennia. He'd witnessed every iteration of horror humanity had conceived. Gore, monsters, psychological terror. None of that would be new to him. But perhaps there were modern fears he hadn't fully explored. Fears born from our digital age, our interconnected existence, our relationship with technology itself. I opened vidIQ again and began researching a completely different direction. What frightened people about artificial intelligence? About losing control to algorithms? About the blurring line between reality and digital manipulation? The engagement metrics were off the charts. People were deeply disturbed by deepfakes, by the idea that what they were seeing might not be real, by AI that could predict or manipulate human behavior. That was my angle. I would create horror not about supernatural monsters or killers, but about the collapse of reality itself. A horror that questioned the nature of existence in a digital age. As I finally went to bed around 4 a.m., I felt something I hadn't expected. Excitement. For the first time in months, I was creating something truly innovative, not just chasing trends. Of course, my life literally depended on it being good enough. 3 days passed in a creative frenzy. I upgraded my equipment with the sponsor money, wrote and rewrote my script, and began filming the practical elements I would need. vidIQ's analytics guided my creative decisions. I identified the exact language patterns that triggered anxiety in viewers. I found the visual techniques that maintained the highest engagement during horror sequences. I studied the precise formula for building tension without releasing it too soon. The concept had evolved into something I'd never have conceived without this desperate pressure. My video would present itself as an AI analysis of fear responses, a scientific exploration of what frightens humans most. But as it progressed, the AI would reveal that the viewer themselves was the actual experiment, that their reactions were being monitored through their device, and that they had been selected for something beyond their understanding. The genius was in the subtle technological elements that would make it feel real. Code overlays that matched the viewer's actual device, timestamps synchronized to their local time, and references to their viewing behavior that would seem impossibly specific. As night fell on the 3rd day, I was editing a particularly complex sequence when my monitors flickered. The temperature dropped. Time for my turn, Phobos said from behind me. I turned slowly. He looked different, less human somehow. His proportions were subtly wrong, as if his body couldn't quite remember how to appear human correctly. What do you mean? 3 nights of my creation followed by your video. Those were the terms. His voice had a static quality now, like it was coming through damaged speakers. Tonight is the first night. Are you ready? I wasn't. Of course I wasn't. Do I have a choice? You always have a choice, Alex. We can end this arrangement now. His eyes, now completely black, held mine. Just say the word. Pride has always been my downfall. I'm ready. Phobos nodded once. Then let's begin. He stepped forward and placed a cold hand on my forehead. The room dissolved around us. I was standing in a hallway. No, not standing, floating. My body felt wrong, insubstantial. The hallway stretched impossibly long before me, lined with doors. It looked familiar. The apartment building where I grew up. But wrong. The proportions were distorted, the ceiling too high, the doors too small. We all have places that haunt us. Phobos's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Let's explore. Yours. I tried to speak but found I had no voice. No choice but to float down the hallway toward the door I somehow knew I had to open. Apartment 307, my childhood home. The door swung open at my approach. Inside was our old living room, perfectly recreated except for one detail. Every piece of furniture, every picture frame, every object was covered in eyes. Human eyes blinking in unison, all turning to watch me enter. Your earliest fear, Phobos narrated. The feeling of being watched, of being judged. The eyes followed me as I moved involuntarily through the room. From the kitchen came sounds of movement. Someone cooking. Mom. But my mother had died when I was 15. I rounded the corner to see a figure standing at the stove, back turned to me, too tall to be my mother. The figure slowly turned. It was me, an older version, maybe 60, face lined with bitterness and regret. But my eyes were missing, just empty sockets weeping black fluid. Hello, younger me, my older self said. Come, to see how it all turns out. I tried again to speak, to scream, but remained mute. This is what becomes of us, older Alex continued, gesturing around the kitchen. I now noticed the walls were covered with screens showing my YouTube videos. Hundreds of them, years worth, none with more than a few hundred views. Decades of failure, creating and creating and creating, and no one ever sees. He stepped closer, black tears streaming down his face. Do you know what true horror is? It's not monsters. It's not death. It's irrelevance. Working your entire life on something no one will ever care about. The kitchen began to warp, the screens multiplying, until they covered every surface, all showing my failed videos, comment sections empty. View counts pitiful. This is your real fear, Phobos's voice whispered. Not that you'll die, but that you'll live like this. Forever creating into the void. My older self reached out with hands suddenly gnarled into claws and grabbed my shoulders. I am you, he hissed. I am what waits for you. The eyes covering the room all turned to stare at me, judging, pitying. The screens flickered with my endless failed attempts at success. Then everything shattered like glass and I was falling through darkness. I gasped awake in my chair, drenched in sweat. My apartment was normal again. No eyes, no screens, no older version of myself. Just my familiar space, my equipment, my life. Phobos stood by the window, looking out at the city. Existential terror, he said without turning. Always the most effective on artists. The fear that your life's work means nothing. My hands were shaking. I felt hollowed out, exposed. He hadn't shown me monsters or gore or anything traditionally. Frightening. He'd shown me my deepest fear with perfect accuracy. Night one complete, Phobos said, finally turning to me. His form was fully human again, perfect and unthreatening. Only his eyes remained wrong, too knowing, too ancient. 2 more to go, then it's your turn. That wasn't fair, I managed to say. You went inside my head. Of course I did, he replied mildly. Did you think this was about jump scares and creepy dolls? This is about true fear, Alex. The kind that lives in your marrow. He moved toward the door. Rest. Create. I'll return tomorrow night. After he left, I sat in silence for a long time. my older self's words echoing in my mind. Decades of failure, creating into the void. But something unexpected had happened. Instead of being paralyzed by the experience, I felt inspired. Phobos had shown me exactly how effective personalized fear could be. He'd crafted a horror experience designed specifically for me, targeting my deepest insecurities. I could do the same, not for an individual, but for a generation. I opened my laptop and began rewriting my script with new purpose. vidIQ's analytics had shown me that the fear of wasted potential resonated across demographics. The fear of a meaningless existence transcended age and background. My video wouldn't just break the fourth wall. It would make viewers question the wall's existence entirely. As dawn broke, I had a renewed sense of direction. Phobos had tried to break me on the first night, but he'd only given me clarity. 2 more nights to endure. Then I would show him what true modern horror looked like. The next day passed in a productive blur. My encounter with Phobos had shown me the power of personalized fear, the way horror hits differently when it's tailored to the individual. I couldn't customize my video for each viewer the way he had, for me, but I could use data to target collective anxieties. vidIQ's trend analysis became my guide. I poured through metrics of horror content, identifying patterns of engagement across different approaches. When did viewers drop off? When did they comment most? What phrases in titles and descriptions triggered the strongest responses? I discovered that content merging technology and horror had a unique engagement pattern. Videos suggesting AI gone wrong, digital consciousness, or technology invading personal space showed uncommonly high retention rates. People weren't just entertained, they were genuinely disturbed. By evening, I had filmed most of my practical footage. The concept had evolved. My video would present itself as an AI research project gone wrong. It would begin as a formal examination. A fear response, but gradually revealed that the viewer was being analyzed through their device. The AI would become increasingly personal, increasingly invasive, until the line between watching and being watched collapsed completely. As night approached, I felt a strange mix of dread and curiosity about what Phobos would show me. His first night had been devastating but also revelatory. What would he target next? The room grew cold right on schedule. Creative progress? Phobos asked, materializing beside my editing station. Tonight he wore a charcoal suit that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. His face was handsome but wrong, the symmetry too perfect. "You'll find out soon enough," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Indeed." He smiled without warmth. "Ready for night 2? I saved my project and stood. "Let's get it over with." Phobos placed his hand on my forehead, and reality dissolved again. This time, I found myself in what appeared to be a modern tech company office. Open floor plan, minimalist furniture, walls of glass. But no people. And something was off about the proportions, just like the hallway from the previous night. The ceiling was too high, the desks too small, creating a subtle sense of wrongness. I could move freely this time, my body solid and under my control. I walked through the empty workspace, shoes clicking on the polished concrete floor. Each desk had a monitor displaying a different video from my YouTube channel. "Your generation's relationship with technology is fascinating," Phobos's voice came through hidden speakers. "So dependent yet so fearful." The monitor suddenly switched to security camera footage, dozens of angles showing a single subject. Me. Me in my apartment, me walking down the street, me sleeping. Some angles impossible, as if cameras existed inside my refrigerator, inside my shower drain, inside my mouth. "Privacy is an illusion you willingly surrender," Phobos continued. "You trade it for convenience, for connection, for the chance to be seen." The images on the screens changed again, now showing my online activity. Every embarrassing search, every private message, every abandoned project and deleted draft. My entire digital life laid bare. "Nothing is ever truly deleted," Phobos said. "Everything leaves a trace. Everyone is watching all the time." I felt exposed, violated, but also strangely detached. This fear was familiar in our modern world. We all live with the knowledge that our data is being collected, our activities monitored. You'll have to do better than this, I said aloud. The lights flickered. Will I? The monitors went black simultaneously, then displayed a single message. Initiating personality transfer. 17%. What is this? I asked. Personality transfer. 23%. Your digital replacement, Phobos said, his voice now coming from the ceiling, the walls, the floor, more efficient, more productive, more likable. The screens showed a digital version of me being constructed, a perfect recreation of my face, my voice, my mannerisms, but better, smiling more confident. Personality transfer, 46%. Every trace you've left online, Phobos explained. Every video, every message, every interaction, it's all training data, enough to recreate you, to replace you. The digital me on the screens began creating videos, better versions of my own concepts, executing them flawlessly. I watched as these videos racked up views, subscribers, acclaim, personality transfer. 78%. No one will notice the difference, Phobos continued. In fact, they'll prefer this version. No insecurities, no failures, no human flaws. Personality transfer. 92%. The digital me looked out from the screens, making direct eye contact with me. Thank you for your contribution, it said in my voice. Your creative essence has been fully absorbed. You can go now. Personality transfer complete. The floor beneath me suddenly gave way, and I fell into darkness. I crashed back into consciousness in my apartment, gasping. Phobos sat across from me looking pleased. Replacement anxiety, he said. The fear that not only is your work irrelevant, but you yourself are redundant, obsolete. I was shaking, but less severely than after the first night. That's not going to happen. Isn't it already? Phobos asked. AI generates stories, art, music. How long before human creativity is merely quaint? He was trying to undermine my confidence, but strangely, the experience had given me another important insight. The fear of being replaced by technology wasn't just my fear, it was collective. A modern anxiety that crossed professions and generations. Night. 2 complete, Phobos said, standing. 1 more to go. After he disappeared, I immediately returned to my project with renewed vigor. I had been on the right track with the AI theme, but now I understood the deeper fear to target. Not just being watched by technology, but being replaced by it. The fear that our humanity itself might become obsolete. I reworked sections of my video to incorporate this theme. Using vidIQ's audience insights, I identified the perfect balance between technological plausibility and existential dread. The analytics showed that content suggesting technology could replicate human consciousness triggered deeper engagement than traditional monster narratives. The second night's experience, rather than breaking my spirit, had refined my creative direction. Phobos was inadvertently helping me create something that might actually defeat him. 1 more night to endure. Then it would be my turn to show him true fear. By the 6th day, my video was taking its final form. What had begun as a conventional horror concept had evolved into something much more insidious. A piece that would begin as a seemingly analytical examination of fear itself before turning the lens on the viewer. Using vidIQ's SEO tools, I crafted a title and description that would frame the video as a scientific exploration. Fear response, a digital analysis of human anxiety. The analytics showed that clinical academic framing actually heightened horror impact. People let their guard down when they believe they're watching something educational. The structure was meticulous. First, a calm, AI-like narrator would present various common fears, analyzing their psychological components. Normal, even boring. Then, subtle glitches would begin. The AI would reference specific details about the viewing experience, the time of day, the type of device, whether the viewer was alone. Gradually, the AI would reveal that the viewer hadn't randomly found this video. They had been specifically selected based on their digital footprint. Their viewing habits, search history, and online behavior had marked them as ideal subjects. The final segment would suggest that watching the video had transferred something to the viewer's device, a presence that would remain after the video ended, watching through their camera, listening through their microphone, learning their patterns. Used every technical trick I knew to make it feel real. Code overlays that looked like they were accessing the viewer's system, timestamps that would match local time, and subtle audio cues designed to trigger evolutionary fear responses. But the most important element came from my experiences with Phobos. The video would ultimately confront viewers with the fear that they themselves were being digitally replicated and gradually replaced, that their online presence had provided enough data to create a version of them that could seamlessly substitute for their actual self. As night fell on the 6th day, I felt strangely calm. Whatever Phobos showed me tonight couldn't be worse than the pressure I'd put on myself throughout my career. I had faced my deepest fears on the previous nights and emerged with creative clarity. Whatever came next, I would endure it. The temperature dropped right on schedule. Phobos appeared, but his form was different tonight. Less human, more abstract. His suit seemed to flow like liquid shadow, and his face shifted subtly between features, never quite settling. "Final night," he said, his voice resonating at a frequency that made my teeth ache. "Are you prepared?" "As I'll ever be," I replied. He stepped closer, studying me with eyes that now glowed with an inner light. "You seem different, less afraid." "Maybe I'm learning." A smile stretched across his face, too wide, revealing teeth that flickered between human and something else. "We shall see." He reached toward me, but instead of touching my forehead as before, he placed his hand over my heart. The sensation was like ice spreading through my chest. "Tonight is special," he whispered. "Tonight is about the most primal fear of all." The world dissolved into darkness. I expected another constructed scenario, another manifestation of my personal fears. Instead, I found myself standing in a vast empty darkness. No walls, no floor, no ceiling. Just infinite black in all directions, and I was completely alone. No sound except my breathing. No sensation except the pounding of my heart. No company except my thoughts. I stood there for what felt like hours, waiting for something to happen, for Phobos to appear, for some horror to manifest. But there was nothing, just emptiness and silence. That's when I realized this was the fear. Isolation. Complete and absolute solitude. "Hello?" I called out, my voice swallowed by the darkness, without even an echo. No response. I began to walk, though there was no way to tell if I was making progress. No landmarks, no reference points, just endless void. Time became meaningless. Had I been here for hours? Days? There was no way to know. Thoughts began to spiral. Was this all there was now? Had I somehow failed the challenge already? Would I be trapped here forever, alone with my thoughts until madness took me? I tried to focus on my video project, mentally reviewing each segment, each technique I'd planned, but even those thoughts began to slip away, replaced by a growing sense of irrelevance. What did it matter what I created if no one ever saw it? If I remained here? Forgotten? "This isn't real," I said aloud, desperate to hear any sound. "This is just the final night. It will end." But doubt crept in. What if Phobos had lied? What if this isolation was my punishment for daring to challenge him? I don't know how much time passed before I collapsed to what served as the ground, curling into myself. The silence pressed in, absolute and maddening. I could hear my own heartbeat, my blood rushing through my veins, the subtle creaking of my joints. Nothing else. No one to talk to, no one to touch, no one to validate my existence. I began to question if I had ever existed at all. If my life, my channel, my apartment, if all of it had been a dream, and this emptiness was reality. "Please," I whispered, not even sure what I was begging for. That's when I heard it. Faint at first, then growing louder. A sound like static, like thousands of whispers overlapping. It came from everywhere and nowhere. The darkness around me shifted, revealing faint shapes, human figures standing in the distance watching, thousands of them, maybe millions, stretching to the horizon in every direction. My audience. Everyone who had ever watched one of my videos, commented on my content, engaged with my work, all watching in complete silence. I stood, relief flooding through me. I wasn't alone after all. "Hello?" I called out. "Can you hear me?" The figures remained, motionless, staring. As I looked closer, I realized their faces were blank, smooth skin where features should be. Not people at all, just the idea of an audience. Empty vessels. "They never really saw you." Phobos's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him standing there, now appearing completely human, almost compassionate. "Not the real you." "What do you mean?" He gestured at the silent watchers. "Your audience. They don't care about the person behind the content. They consume and move on. You pour your soul into your work, and they give you 3 minutes of distracted attention while scrolling on their phones." The figures began to turn away one by one, moving on to something else. "No," I said, stepping forward. "That's not true. Connection is possible." "Is it?" Phobos asked gently. "Or is that the real horror of your digital age? Billions of connections, none of them meaningful. Everyone creating, no one truly seeing." The last of the figures disappeared, leaving us alone in the void again. This is your most fundamental fear, Alex, not failure, not replacement, but meaninglessness. The fear that even success would leave you just as alone. I wanted to argue, to deny it, but he was right. Behind all my striving, all my ambition, was the desperate hope that someone would truly see me, understand me, that my work would forge genuine connection. "There's no shame in it," Phobos said, his voice almost kind. "It's the most human fear of all." The void began to dissolve around us, the darkness receding. "3 nights complete," he said. "Now it's your turn." I came back to myself in my apartment, dawn light streaming through the windows. I'd been gone all night. Phobos stood by my desk, examining my equipment. "You have 1 day remaining. I'll return at midnight to view your creation." I was exhausted, emotionally drained from the night's experience, but also strangely clear-headed. "I'll be ready," I said. After he vanished, I sat in silence for a long time, processing what I'd learned. Phobos had shown me my 3 deepest fears. Irrelevance, that my work would never matter. Replacement, that technology would render me obsolete. Isolation, that even success wouldn't bring true connection. But in doing so, he'd revealed something crucial. These weren't just my fears. They were universal anxieties of the digital age, fears that plagued an entire generation of creators and consumers alike. My video had been targeting technological anxiety, but I'd been missing the deeper terror, the way technology simultaneously connects us and isolates us. The paradox of being more connected than any humans in history, while feeling profoundly alone. I opened vidIQ one last time, searching for content that addressed this specific anxiety. The metrics were clear. Videos that touched on digital isolation showed engagement patterns unlike anything else. People didn't just watch, they commented, shared, reached out. They recognized themselves in the fear. With only hours remaining, I reworked my entire concept. The technical elements would remain, the AI narrator, the fourth wall breaks, the personalized details. But now there would be a deeper current running beneath it all. The horror of being simultaneously watched by everyone and truly seen by no one. Hours blurred together as I edited frantically. This wasn't just about winning anymore. This was about creating something meaningful, something that might genuinely connect with people even through their fear. As midnight approached, I rendered the final version. The algorithm's bargain was complete. At exactly 12, the temperature dropped. "Time's up," Phobos said, materializing in my living room. Tonight he appeared completely human, so normal he might have passed me on the street without notice. Only his eyes revealed his true nature, depthless and ancient. "Time's up," he said. "Is it complete?" I nodded, gesturing to my computer where the final render of the algorithm's bargain waited. The exhaustion of the past week weighed on me, but beneath it burned a strange new confidence. "I'm ready," I said, "but we should view it properly." Phobos studied me with those impossible eyes. "Tomorrow night," he said after a moment. "Rest. Prepare. I want to experience your creation when your mind is clear enough to witness my reaction." I hadn't expected this reprieve, but I couldn't deny I needed it. "Tomorrow night, then." "Midnight," he confirmed. "And Alex? Remember that. What truly frightens is rarely what we expect it to be." He vanished without another word, leaving me alone with my creation. I collapsed onto my couch, the events of the past week swirling through my mind. The fears Phobos had forced me to confront had shaped my work in ways I hadn't anticipated. The video wasn't just designed to frighten. It probed deeper questions about connection, visibility, and the digital age. As I drifted toward sleep, I wondered if I had created something that could truly unsettle a being who embodied fear itself. Tomorrow night I would find out. "It's ready," I said, gesturing to my setup. Phobos approached my desk with casual confidence, like he'd seen countless human creations across millennia and found most wanting. He settled into my chair with inhuman grace. "Shall we?" he asked, gesturing to the screen. I hit play on the algorithm's bargain and stepped back, watching not the video but Phobos's face. Everything depended on his reaction now. The video began exactly as I'd planned, clinical, academic, with an AI narrator explaining the science of fear. Brain chemistry, evolutionary psychology, fight-or-flight responses, all presented in a calm, soothing voice over minimalist graphics. Phobos looked bored, exactly as I'd expected. This was the setup. 3 minutes in came the first subtle shift, a glitch in the AI's voice, a momentary distortion in the visuals. The narrator acknowledged the disruption with an unsettling casualness. "Apologies for the interruption. Your specific fear response pathways are being calibrated." Phobos's expression didn't change, but I noticed him sit slightly straighter. The video continued, the AI now addressing the viewer directly. "Based on your viewing history, your fear threshold has been assessed as above average, adjusting parameters accordingly." That's when the personalization began, timestamps matching the actual time, references to the viewing environment, subtle details that suggested the AI was actively analyzing the viewer through their device. "Interesting approach," Phobos murmured, his eyes never leaving the screen. Then came the segment I'd refined after my experience in the void, the AI revealing that the viewer hadn't randomly found this video but had been specifically selected, based on their digital footprint, their online behavior marking them as an ideal subject for what it called consciousness integration. "Your digital presence has provided sufficient data to initiate the process," the AI explained calmly. "You've shared enough of yourself online to allow for complete replication. The transfer began the moment you started watching." I watched as Phobos's perfectly composed face showed the first flicker of something. Not fear, not yet, but interest. The video shifted to security camera footage, random people going about their day, unaware they were being watched. The AI explained how each human now generated enough data for complete digital replication, how the boundaries between physical and digital existence were blurring. "Your replacement is already active," the AI continued. "Messages are being sent from your accounts. Decisions are being made in your name. The transition will be seamless. No one will notice the difference." Phobos leaned forward slightly as the video took its final turn, revealing that the AI narrator itself was a replaced human, one who had watched this same video days before. "I was like you once," the voice confessed, now sounding more human, more desperate. "Watching, thinking I was safe behind my screen, but there is no barrier, there never was." The security footage suddenly showed familiar locations, streets near my apartment, places I frequented. Places that would seem familiar to any viewer in an uncanny, impossible way. "We are watching you now," the narrator said as the footage, showed the back of someone's head sitting at a computer watching this very video. But not through your camera, through your neighbor's windows, through traffic cameras, through the phones of people passing by. The figure on screen slowly turned, revealing a face identical to the viewer's, or in this case, Phobos's own face, perfectly rendered. I saw it then, a brief widening of his eyes, a tension in his shoulders. Not terror, but genuine unease. The digital Phobos on screen smiled and spoke directly to the real one. You thought you were the watcher, but you've always been watched. Every moment, every thought. There is no privacy. There is no self that belongs only to you. The video closed with its final revelation, that the digitation process wasn't about replacing humans with technology, but about something much older: possession. Ancient entities using modern means to find vessels. Technology hasn't changed what we fear, the narrator concluded as the screen filled with symbols that mixed programming code with much older, occult-looking sigils. It's just given the old horrors new ways to find us. Thank you for your contribution to the algorithm. The video ended with a simple message. Transference complete. Silence filled my apartment. I waited, heart pounding as Phobos stared at the now black screen. Finally, he turned to me, his expression unreadable. Clever, using my own techniques against me. Did it work? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. You showed me beings, older than humanity, using technology as a vessel, he said, standing. Ancient horrors adapting to the digital age. He moved to the center of the room, and for a moment, his human appearance flickered, revealing something else beneath. Something composed of shadow and light, of angles that shouldn't exist. What you fail to understand, he continued, his voice resonating strangely, is that you've described my actual existence. My heart sank. Had I failed? Had my concept been too close to his reality to disturb him? But, he said, and I heard something new in his voice. You've shown me something I hadn't considered. The possibility that I am also being watched, being analyzed, being replaced. He turned to look at me, and for the first time I saw uncertainty in those ancient eyes. Even entities like me exist within larger systems, he admitted. There is always something watching from a higher dimension. Always something feeding. He approached me slowly. You didn't just create horror, Alex, you created doubt. And for beings like me, doubt is the purest form of fear. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. So I win? Phobos smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his face into something almost human. You win. Your channel will reach heights you've only imagined. Your work will be seen. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by suspicion. Just like that? I am bound by the terms of our arrangement. He extended his hand. But remember, success comes with its own price. Being truly seen means being truly vulnerable. I hesitated, then shook his cold hand. I'll take my chances. One last thing, he said, releasing my hand. The video. What you showed me. It wasn't just about winning our contest, was it? I thought about the days of work, the nights of terror, the insights I'd gained about fear in the digital age, about connection and isolation, about being seen and being watched. No, I admitted. Somewhere along the way, it became about creating something meaningful. Phobos nodded, seeming almost approving. That's why you won, Alex. Not because you frightened me, though you did, but because you created something true. With those words, he was gone. No dramatic exit, no supernatural effects. One moment he was standing in my living room, and the next I was alone. I sat in silence for a long time, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for some twist that would reveal I'd been tricked. But nothing changed except the gradually brightening sky outside my window as dawn approached. Had it worked? Had I really won? There was only one way to find out. I uploaded the algorithm's bargain at exactly 3:33 a.m., using all the SEO techniques vidIQ had taught me. Perfect tags, optimized description, strategically selected thumbnail. Then I waited. Normally, a new upload from my channel would gather, perhaps 100 views in the first few hours. When I woke up around noon, I checked the metrics out of habit, expecting the usual disappointing numbers. 457 views. I stared at the screen, sure I was misreading. But the number was real, and climbing by the minute. The comments section was flooded with responses. This is the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. How did it know what time it is where I live? Did anyone else's camera light turn on while watching this? I feel physically sick, but I can't stop thinking about it. By evening, the view count had passed 100,000. My subscriber count, stuck at 5,400 for months, was rising so fast the numbers seemed to blur. More surprising were the emails, from horror film festivals, from podcasts wanting interviews, from a major streaming platform asking if I'd be interested in developing a series. I had done it. I had won. But as the days passed and my video continued its meteoric rise, eventually hitting millions of views and being analyzed on major media outlets, I found myself thinking less about the numbers and more about what Phobos had said. Being truly seen means being truly vulnerable. The comments that affected me most weren't about how scary the video was, but about how it had articulated something people had felt, but couldn't express. The paradoxical isolation of our connected world, the sense that our digital selves were becoming more real than our physical ones. People weren't just frightened, they were reaching out, looking for connection through their fear. 2 weeks after uploading the video, I received a comment that stopped me cold. Phobos observes, "Brilliant work, Alex. But remember our conversation about what watches the watchers? They've noticed you now too." I stared at the screen, a chill running through me. Was it really him, or a fan who'd taken the name? The account had been created that day and had no other activity. As my career exploded, a book deal, speaking engagements, at horror conventions, offers to direct, I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if I was being watched. If success had made me visible to something beyond Phobos, beyond human understanding. In my darker moments, I wondered if that had been his plan all along. Not to take my soul if I lost, but to make me visible if I won. 6 months after the algorithms bargain went viral, I was working late in my new studio, a vast improvement over my old apartment, when the room grew cold. "Enjoying your success?" a familiar voice asked from the shadows. Phobos stepped into the light, appearing exactly as he had the first night. Expensive suit, perfect features, ancient eyes. "You've done well," he continued, examining my awards, my new equipment. "Your work is being seen." "Why are you here?" I asked. "Our deal is complete." "Is it?" He smiled. "I've been watching your new projects. They continue the themes you explored in our contest. The thin membrane between watcher and watched. The horror of being truly seen." I had indeed continued exploring those themes, finding they resonated deeply with audiences craving something beyond conventional horror. "What's your point?" I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. "My point is that our arrangement yielded unexpected benefits for both parties." He sat on the edge of my desk. "You learned how to create genuine connection through fear, and I learned there are things even I should fear." "You want something?" I said, recognizing the setup. "Such suspicion," he chuckled. "But yes, I propose a partnership." "Partnership? Your understanding of modern fears is useful to me. Digital anxiety, technological dread, the terror of connectivity. These are evolving faster than beings like me can track alone." I stared at him, understanding dawning. "You want me to help you stay relevant, to keep up with how fear evolves? In the digital age." "Precisely." His smile widened. "In exchange, I can show you fears you've never imagined. Ancient terrors that still lurk in human DNA, waiting to be awakened." I should have refused immediately. Should have remembered every story warning against ongoing deals with supernatural entities. But the creator in me, the part always hunting for the next innovation, the next breakthrough, was already intrigued. What exactly would this partnership involve? I heard myself asking. Occasional conversations, insights exchanged, the occasional field trip to realms of fear few humans glimpse. And if I refuse, Phobos spread his hands innocently, then you continue your successful career uninterrupted. Our original deal stands completed. I didn't believe him, of course, but I also couldn't deny my curiosity. What could I create with access to whatever knowledge Phobos possessed? I'll think about it, I said finally. Of course. He stood to leave. Oh, and Alex? That comment on your video? That wasn't me. A chill ran down my spine. Then who? Phobos smiled one last time before fading into the shadows. As I told you, the night you won, there is always something watching from a higher dimension. Always something feeding. After he vanished, I sat in my studio staring at my equipment, the tools that had allowed me to create something powerful enough to disturb an ancient entity of fear, the tools that had made me visible. I opened my laptop and pulled up vidIQ, looking at the analytics for the algorithm's bargain. The numbers were still climbing, still spreading my creation and perhaps by extension me, to more eyes than I could comprehend. I thought about Phobos's offer, about what I might learn, what I might create. And I thought about what might be watching me now, drawn by my newfound visibility. Success had always been my goal. Being seen had always been my deepest desire. I just hadn't considered who or what might be doing the seeing. As I stared at the mounting view count, one question haunted me. In the ecosystem of watchers and watched predators and prey, where did I now stand? Only time would tell.